Around 1860, the French seized the area near Saigon. They took over central and northern Vietnam during the next 2 decades, and by 1885, Vietnam had once again lost its independence. French Indochina at the end of the 1880s, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, which the French divided into 3 regions, Cochin China, Annam, and Tonkin. To the Vietnamese, the division was a deliberate attempt to destroy their national unity. The first moving images of the new colonies were recorded in the early 1900s. Frans looked at the traditional Indo-Chinese cultures and saw very little it considered civilization. The colonizers took upon themselves the French version of the white man's burden, la mission civilisatrice, the bringing of civilization and Catholicism to the natives. The Vietnamese resisted. The French called all resistors pirates, and they sent in the troops for the first pacification of Vietnam. They staged public executions. The severed heads were photographed and printed on postcards, which soldiers sent home to sweethearts in Paris with kisses from Hanoi. It took 20 years to get the Vietnamese resistance under control. Then the French could concentrate on the economics of colonialism, trying to transform Vietnam into a source of profit. They opened factories and expanded the mines in the north. In the south, they developed tea, rubber, and rice plantations. Indochina exported rice to 30 countries. And exports stayed high, even if it meant the peasants starved.
The people here suffered a lot because of high taxes and hard forced labor. They worked from dawn till dusk, but they did not have enough to eat.
The cheap labor profited a few French companies, even though Indochina was a financial sinkhole. The French nation spent millions of francs each year to protect and support the colony, while French companies like Michelin Rubber made millions in profits from factories and plantations. French newsreels showed only clean, modern workplaces, but in fact, the Vietnamese worked under the most brutal and degrading conditions.
In the rubber plantations, the workers were treated so inhumanely that they died young and died in droves. There was a saying that the workers were fertilizer for the rubber trees because their corpses were buried under the trees.
There were no major uprisings during these hard years. Vietnamese society was reeling under the impact of westernization. French culture permeated the cities, bringing Western fashions and ideas. Some French scholars and artists admired Vietnamese civilization, and early Western photographers recorded Vietnamese life. But most French felt superior to the natives. The Vietnamese elite began to give their sons a Western education. Almost all of those who would lead the next resistance of the French were French educated. Among them was Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh's early years are difficult to trace. He was always mysterious about himself, giving few interviews, and preferring in later life to present himself as the benevolent Uncle Ho. Ho was born about 1890 as Nguyen Tat Tan, the son of an official who resigned rather than serve under the French. As As a young man, Ho left his country, working as a ship hand and cook in America, Britain, and France. In September 1911, he was in Marseille and sent a request to the Ministry of Colonies. "I would like to be useful to France," he wrote, "in its dealings with my people." And he asked to be admitted to the colonial training school. He was told to apply elsewhere. In 1917, Ho moved to Paris. He took the pseudonym Nguyen Ai Quoc, Nguyen the Patriot, and began to agitate for Vietnam's independence. He tried to plead his cause at the Versailles Conference following World War I, but was not admitted. His effort made him famous among the Vietnamese.